Introduction. Let's do a coffee break. My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic, and grateful to be alive and sober and part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. Ali, thank you so much. I love you for the invitation, the group, for still having the Zoom doors open on a Tuesday night. I have some friends who refuse to go to a live meeting on Tuesday. They'd rather be on your meeting, and I know why. I see some of the speakers popping out here, and it's just great to be back and visiting with all of you. A loving God separated me from alcohol June 23rd, 1988. I'm very grateful to be a part of this fellowship in good standing, and be here tonight to share the good news that was brought to me. I do have a home group. It's called Alcoholics and God. We meet in Fort Lauderdale on Monday and Thursday. You usually find me there on Thursday. And I do have a sponsor, Bob Azam from St. Paul, Minnesota. And I sponsor probably too many guys, but I chop wood and carry water and do the best I can. Very often when these guys call, the last thing I want to do is pick up the phone and hear more inventory, but I hear the inventory and I'm always better off on the other end of the phone call. So they help keep me sober. I know so many speakers out here come out and break down their experience with the 11 steps. So I will tell you, this isn't about me telling anyone what to do or what they shouldn't be doing. I'm going to do my best just to share where I'm at and what works for me. And I really wasn't sure where to go in the big book. So what I usually do is sit in prayer and meditation and see what comes to me. It'll always unfold. And what came to me was this. And the quote I took was at the bottom of page 105 in our 12 and 12. It says, "We know that God lovingly watches over us. We know that when we turn to him, all will be well with us here and hereafter." And Bill's actually saying this as if with he's sure about this. He's not theorizing. But if you just give me a little latitude, I want to read the whole paragraph. It says this: "Perhaps one of the greatest rewards of meditation and prayer is the sense of belonging that comes to us. We no longer live in a completely hostile world. We are no longer lost and frightened and purposeless. The moment we catch even a glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see truth, justice, and love as the real and eternal things in life, we are no longer deeply disturbed by all the seeming evidence to the contrary that surrounds us in a purely human affairs." And that really kind of spoke to me. I was looking around and that just, God said, this is what we're going to talk about. And I didn't understand why, but it's very current. And perhaps with a lot of us, with what's going on, and I want to be careful our traditions here with outside issues, but what's going on in the world, what's going on in the States, it's pretty much upside down and inside out, depending on your point of view. It seems like good is not rewarded and poor behavior is rewarded. And it's just a funny time. We just got out of COVID and there's usually another crisis. And so how do I navigate through this? I was guilty when COVID started. Things were getting locked down. I was guilty of taking sides in that and blaming a group of people for, this is why this is happening. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's not my fault. And I found myself getting riled up about that. And the blood pressure would go through the roof. And I would go from Moses in prayer and meditation to Rambo after watching the news. And it wasn't working out for me. And tell us, based on what you're doing, out for you. And I wanted to get on my white horse, draw the sword, and go into the crowd and have everyone live according to Peter Marinelli's will. And that's just futile. It's playing God. It didn't work. So I had to take a look at, what am I not doing that I'm getting upset, trying to live a contemplative life, try to be in a place of neutrality, safe and protected. I was failing miserably at it in this particular area. But if spirituality doesn't touch every single area of my life, it touches none of my life. So if I'm lacking in some areas, I lack in every area. The part, am I worshiping God or the part of me that thinks it's God? And so this got real slippery for me and uncomfortable. And so I had to go back to surrendering all things to God in prayer, meditation, in the morning, throughout the day, and even the evening. In order for me to be in touch with what's outside of me, I need to experience that power that is within me. And I was missing that. And I'm very grateful it didn't go on and on and on for months and months and months, but it was a wake-up call as to what am I doing and what am I not doing enough of. And what I wasn't doing enough of was a total surrender to God. We had to quit playing God. So I had to surrender all things to God. And over and over and over again, if I put my trust and reliance in outside things, I'm really not sure what I'm going to get. And scoffers will scoff and doubters will doubt. But somehow, when I completely surrender or get surrendered to God's will for me, get in line with God, I don't know what I'm going to get, but I do know it's going to be better than what I'm holding on to at that moment. And the more I lock into God, the more I surrender, the more transparent, the more vulnerable I am, the more weaker I feel, if you will, the more intimate I get with God and the more I experience God. And suddenly, because I'm coming at you with experience, all the outside stuff is not going to change because I wish it to. It's going to happen the way things happen. But my walk through it is completely different. It's a lot lighter. I was listening to a talk not too long ago. Bill W. was speaking, and it was in the 50s, and he was saying something like, we're living in uncertain times. This was during the 50s. And I thought about it. Here we are a bunch of years later, 2022. We're living in a world of uncertain times. It's always going on. I have to take a look at my walk through that. And am I truly surrendering to God? I can begin to live in fear to the point where I'm completely unaware I'm living in fear, and I'm making decisions out of that. I'm speaking out of that. I'm behaving out of that, and I'm completely unaware of it, except I'm experiencing the effects of living in fear. And none of it's good. I'm coming home black and blue every day, or perhaps I'm offending people, and I'm not okay. So I had to get to a place of practicing my 11 step at a level I never did before. Now, I'm up early, 5 a.m. pretty much. It seems to be God keeps waking me up earlier as the weeks go on, as the years go on. So today I get up at 4:10 a.m. and I'm wide awake and I'm not tired. There was no trouble on the horizon, but that's when God wakes me up, and I come right into this room and I sit in prayer meditation. And I've learned a long time ago that when God taps me on the shoulder extra early, to pay close attention to that, because maybe he wants some alone time with me. Maybe he's going to put something on my heart. Maybe he's going to answer a riddle that's been troubling me. See, it's real easy to study the 11th step and go out and give a talk on it. It doesn't require much effort. It requires little effort to talk about God. It requires little effort to quote the big book. It requires little effort to quote scripture. All I need to do is get about an hour of study time, and you'll think I'm Moses. You would think I'm at the Last Supper, or I wrote the big book. That's not much effort. For me, the longer I'm sober, it's about what does this look like going live? What does that 11th step look like with adversity? What does the 11th step look like when fun times come? Where does it look like live? When I wake up in the morning and I'm really tired, or perhaps wide awake, I don't feel like going to work. I don't like my job today. I don't like anyone I work with. I'm not making enough money. Oh my God, I'm 63 years old. And a lot of, how does the 11th step look like then? How does the 11th step look like when things aren't going my way, or I get a phone call, a loved one or a friend has passed away? In the past 5 days, 6 people have died that I know, all overdose related, 6 of them, all under 40 years old. How do you navigate through that? How do I navigate? I was speaking to my dad just a couple of hours ago, and he got back from. He had to get this tests to test the bone marrow and all this other stuff on him. And how do I navigate through? My dad repeated the same story 3 times to me. And then he pops out and he's back. He's Vic Marinelli. He's sharp. He's Robert De Niro again. He's firing on all cylinders. And then he repeats the same story. And his voice is changed. His voice sounds old. What do I do with that? Am I going to trust God or not? Am I going to be able to be a son and support and allow him to be where he's at with what he has at the moment? Or do I need to control and compensate and fix and apologize? How free do I want to be? How free am I currently? So for me, this 11th step and the information in our book and in our 12 and 12 has become much more vital to me the longer I'm sober. My day starts off on awakening, literally on awakening. My eyes open up, and before I get on with the day and an idiot takes over, I need to call on God to take over. I mean, I can't say how many times, I wake up 5 o'clock and by 5:05, I'm in a heated argument with someone who died like 30 years ago. I got the day running in my head already, and it's 5 minutes after 5. I'm up at 5 minutes, and already the traffic has been going all night. And by 6 a.m., I need to take a nap and start all over again. That's a crummy way to live. When the third step says, take away my difficulties, what are my roadblocks currently? What's in the way? And why do I have the arrogance as an alcoholic to think that somehow I can control and manage this stuff? And the root of all of it for me is fear. So I start on awakening. I start on awakening. And I got to be really careful with my alcoholism because it'll go underground and resurface in other areas. It's working on me and I don't even know it because my alcoholism gets a life by taking mine. And I'm the last one to know about it. My alcoholism will pay any price tomorrow to seek comfort right now. And I don't even know it's working. So I really need to lock into God. I need to practice fidelity to God. And if I practice fidelity to God, I will experience God's fidelity to me. And if I'm faithful to the practice that we do will be faithful to me. And the practice for me isn't just prayer and meditation. I mean, that's key, prayer and meditation. And we can talk about the nightly reviews and all of that. But what kind of practice do I have, like as far as me being disciplined to a spiritual life? Do I wake up at 6 one morning, 11 the next morning, 3 the next afternoon? Am I all over the map, going to sleep? What does that look like? Do I have some discipline and regimentation in my life? Am I taking care of my body? For me, sometimes a practice is sitting outside my office at work. I work in this area called Parkland, Florida. It's really like the country. It's really pretty. And I got these 100-foot trees out there. And I got all these raccoons and squirrels and all this wildlife just doing their thing. And sometimes I'll just sit out there and just watch nature show off. I'll do it usually in the afternoon and just hang out and get quiet. I don't need to pray. I don't need to say any words. I can just do it. I love going down to the beach with Marion. I don't do it enough to call it a practice, but just sitting, I don't even need to go swimming. I just watch the waves show off. And sometimes you just reading something really spiritual that I like to do, but it's a practice where I get to commune with God outside the prayer and meditation. So I don't just pray and meditate and then I go back to being me again and I take over and I run the day. But it's constant contact with God, having conscious contact, not unconscious contact with God. When I first got sober, like many of us, I'm sure we got into the AA boot camp and we would say the number one priority in my life is sobriety. And we all were taught that and we parrot that and we really mean it. Sobriety is a number one priority. Well, the truth is true until we discover a new truth. And now that is obviously very important to me. But for me, my number one priority has been for quite some time having conscious contact with God, which means I'm awake to God. I'm in a place of experiencing God. Because when that is happening, quite frankly, I find myself sober another day. God's taking care of that. And a lot of the isms that accompany my alcoholism. Yeah, all those things that kind of go along with alcoholism once the drinking's removed. And that's the selfishness, self-centered, self-seeking, self-absorbed, ego, pride, envy, sloth, gluttony, greed that accompany my alcoholism, that if I'm not careful, this stuff starts to operate in my life, and I'm the last one to know about it. So I start on my knees, prayer, meditation. I thank God for another day, and I make some prayers, usually after asking Him for some guidance and divorce from self-pity and dishonest and self-seeking motives. Please keep me clean and sober today. I pray for a lot of people in the morning. I pray for the suffering in the world right now because there's a whole lot of it. And maybe there was always suffering in the world. I just watched a documentary on World War I. I can't believe what took place back then. I mean, it was just diabolical. So maybe there was just as much suffering, but I do know what I'm involved in, and I see a lot of suffering. So I pray for people who are suffering, not only in AA, but outside of AA. I pray for friends who are sick. And when I'm done with my prayers, and I must tell you, I still do the 3rd step prayer and the 7th step prayer. I love our Lord's Prayer. And I do that as more of a centering. I can't command the Spirit to do anything, but I can be in a position to be guided by this power or changed by this power. So that's what I'm kind of positioning myself to do. I do none of this perfect, by the way. I screw up regularly. But that's what I do. And then when I'm done with praying, I sit in sacred silence. I've said this from a million podiums. For me, silence meditation is going into that quiet to hear and darkness to see. And sometimes when I'm in meditation, it is busy. It's really busy. There's a million things rolling around in the head, that places I need to be and things I need to do, because the world can't survive without Pete Marinelli. And every once in a while I hit that sweet spot where I'm not thinking anymore. I can't make that happen, but I step into the batter's box and try to get a hit. And when I'm done with my meditation, I have a practice in my house. And part of that little practice while I'm communing with God, when I'm done with the prayer meditation part, is I do chores every morning in the house while Marion's sleeping to make her life a little easier. And so I do a lot of that in the morning. And I bring her coffee at 7:30 in the morning, so she doesn't have to go make coffee. It's already made. It's a little practice I do. I love doing the chores in the morning. Somewhere in there, I try to go for a walk or a run or get to a gym, because I'm up so early, I have the luxury of doing that. Another practice I have is when I drive up to my place of work, I have a very religious statue outside my office. And what I do is, before I get out of my car and, run into work, I work in the treatment field. There's a lot of moving parts. I sit in my car for a couple of minutes and just ask God to guide me again. And I usually go over to that statue and ask for blessings to keep everyone in this place safe and protected. And then I walk into work. I've done this religiously since I've been at this place. It's going on 5 years now. It's become a way. It's a practice. And I truly believe in the practice. I'm faithful to that practice. I've had some very, very difficult, challenging days at work, but I still show up for work and I'm productive. That's how I have to look at that. I don't quit. God has given me endurance. And the same goes for Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a practice. I go to meetings regularly. I have a practice. I have a home group which I serve. I have a practice. I call my sponsor once a week minimum. I have a practice. I still write inventory. Things like this. I have a practice. I'm in church on Sundays. If I'm not on the road, I go to Mass. It's that important to me. Now, again, I want to reiterate, folks, you're looking at a broken vessel here. There's a lot of cracks in this armor. I'm far from perfect, and I never want to ever give anyone that impression that I do certain things and somehow I've transcended everyone else. That's baloney. I mean, one day God, maybe, God might make me an enlightened being, might make me a spiritual being. But one thing He has me in this condition until I take my last breath, and that is human being, which means I'm broken and flawed and subject to collapse at any minute and get into self-will. And I'm the type of alcoholic, and it happened to me. I did a thing called Gopher State Roundup many years ago, and they get about 8,000 people at this thing, and so many people were in line saying, "Peter, thank you for a great talk. Thank you for a great talk." Well, that's flattering to hear. And as I'm walking out the hotel doorway, about to go to dinner with some friends, I hear from the background, "Hey, Pete." And some guy does this to me, which is never a good thing when someone calls you over like this. My ex-wife used to do that. That's why she's an ex-wife. But anyway, and he came up to me and he says to me, "That was an interesting talk. That's AA code for your talk sucked." And he says, "I never heard New Age AA before." So he underscored how bad I was in his mind. Well, I got to tell you, this alcoholic mind took that guy to dinner on the plane home when I was living in Jersey, and he rented space in my head for like a few weeks. Now, what did I say wrong? I should go back and change the talk and all of that. And that's when I'm living in self-reliance. And when I do that, the external world and its people own me. Back to the reading which I opened up with. When I'm in the place of truly trusting and relying upon God, I have a lot more liberty in my life. And I'm not looking to please the world out there. I want to do nice things for people, but I have conscious contact with God, and that is the power I need to please. And what I have found out, it's an easy power to please. Now, for me, it isn't about doing, and Thomas Merton talks about this, doing good deeds for other people, having a charitable heart, saying, "Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, sir, no, thank you, may I." That's just part of being the human race. It doesn't make me more spiritual than anyone else. Being spiritual is allowing, kind of taking my hands off the wheel and letting God do with me as He wants. Wherever it takes me, whatever He wants me to do, whatever He wants me to say, relinquishing all control. And that's where the mind says, "Now hold on a second. We want to be spiritual, but not that extreme. Am I willing to go all the way into the forest? Or just look at the forest from the outside? Do I just want to trim some dead leaves off the tree, or am I letting go and God's going to say, "No, I'm pulling the whole thing out. I'm going to give you new friends, a new relationship, a new job, and by the way, I'm taking a whole bunch of your money away from you." Most of us would say, "No, hold on, I need to find a new God and a new religion. I'm going to join a new fellowship." Am I willing to do that? How free do I want to be? Now, I'm not saying that this is going to happen to me or us. God's pushed me a few times to the brink where I started to question God, but I go in because my experience shows it's always better than what I come up with. See, what I come up with is really good for about 30 days. And then it starts to have some residue and some residual effects that I don't like. And then it's coupled with a little remorse and guilt and morbid reflection. And then I'm back in the rabbit hole. But when I'm doing God's will, not always, by the way, but sometimes God's will is like, "This is never going to work. This is crazy. Why is God doing this to me?" And I get to the other side. There's no guilt, remorse, no bad feelings. In fact, I travel a lot lighter. For me, listen, mechanics are important. And I'm very grateful for the very rigid people I had, the sponsors who held my feet to the fire, very, very rigid. But there comes a point on this journey about experiencing the freedom that this book is talking about, and traveling light, and being okay with other people. Even though they don't like me, they will never like me, but I need to find a place in my heart for forgiveness. My sponsor has said a million times, it's either amends or forgiveness, sometimes both. But to be okay in my soul, to reach out to friends I love and say, just thinking about you, to checking in on them. I spoke to a dear friend of mine earlier. I gave him a call because I miss him and I only see him at conferences. And I really enjoy his company. I just, hey, how's it going? That's freedom. To be able to be wrong in a conversation is freedom. I don't always have to be right. So what it says, and I'll just read it one more time, and I think I'm running out of time here. We know that God lovingly watches over us. What does that look like when I'm going through my day? Am I in touch with that God's got my back? And God's got your back. You know, if I'm arguing with someone having a disagreement, I think God's on my side and they don't have one. I need to be hip that they got God too. Am I arguing with God here? Am I going to let bygones be bygones? Am I going to clean up something I should clean up immediately? We know that when we turn to him, all will be well with us here and hereafter. Bill doesn't say it's going to be well out there, but I'm going to find some sort of okayness in here. And that's all I can really do. See, if I'm not okay with you, it's because I'm not okay with me. And the reason why I'm not okay with me is I'm not okay with him. But somehow when I start to have conscious contact with God, I get okay with me. I seem to be a lot more okay with you, no matter what's going on. And now I can do what Merton, 11-step prayer talks about. I can be a peacemaker where there's trouble, rather than stirring the pot a little bit more. And I'll close with this. I wish he was still alive and maybe one day I could meet him, but it's really profound. And this is what the author writes, and I'll get out of your hair. It says this: my Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have the desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire to please God. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Merton writes some beautiful stuff. And for me, that's a great way to go out into my day after prayer meditation, because I have no clue what's going to happen in an hour from now. But if I walk with this power, even believe that I'm walking with this power, I go in with God as my spiritual airbag. And even when people throw thorns, they're going to fall short. They won't hurt. So I need protection through the day. I need God to allow me to be what he created, warts and all, to speak my truth and stand corrected if I have to make amends when it's required, and to live in the sunlight of the Spirit, because I'm an alcoholic and I got a default button that says double vodka, and it's just waiting for me to click. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I'm sober a number of years, thank you God, in AA, but I'm still an alcoholic. There's no guarantee I'm going to be sober tomorrow. I have a pretty good feeling about tomorrow, but I don't have a crystal ball that says I'm going to be sober forever. And some of these cats in this room I know around a long time. We've heard the horror stories of John and Mary going out with double digits. They don't come back. So I count my blessings. Ali, I love you, man. Good to see a bunch of you folks out here. That's all I got. Peace.